Good evening and welcome everyone. Welcome to round 4 of WOR Season 21, where we are at the Circuit of the Americas for a very topsy-turvy race. We've got the standings on the screen as we speak, but I'm joined by Joseph yet again for this season, so welcome along. How are you doing?
Very good, very excited for this one to get started. It's a hot one here in the UK, and we're hoping that it breeds a hot one in the in the race that we have this evening. We're at the US, so a very, very exciting race to come ahead.
We will go and speak more about the standings in a moment in full detail, but the top two drivers, Dahl and Matteo, are not racing tonight. They're 3 points separating the two of them. However, no points gained from them. Azim not racing tonight on 27 points. Francesco Largo is racing. They may be able to catch a little bit of steam from this. And then 4 drivers on 18 points. But we'll go a proper look at that very, very shortly. But let's have a look at the drivers on track. We have currently... Silo, ETA Silo, coming through the Maggots and Beckett's section of this track, and a lot of people don't like this circuit, but I'm a fan of this one. I think Circuit of the Americas is probably the best American track we've got on the calendar as a whole.
It feels like a weird circuit for people to complain about because it's quite literally just they've given the designer Herman Tilke a completely blank check, and he's basically just gone and stolen bits of other circuits. So you think of the Maggots and Beckett's bit, it's also moulded on the CNRS's. The third sector as well has a couple of things that copy from other circuits, and then of course Big Red, the big American corner down at turn 1, appropriately named for the Texan the Texan people among us, and it should be a very it's a very good circuit. It does breed a decent amount of racing, although there's not that many DRS zones to go off, and I know a lot of the drivers complain about that back straight and how little you can see. I believe the time zone has been adjusted, so I think we should be all right. And we get our first few laps in. Gavroche up to the top with a 30.8, instantly displaced by Silo, and Quantum goes a 10th off Gavroche and 2 off of Silo.
Teammate only managing a 31.1 for the time being, as Justin goes quickest of all. We've seen how quick they can go, but the reigning champion throws his car into second place, which is immediately displaced by CSI teammate Oscar. Sorry, excuse me. It's a CSI 1-2-3 at the moment, showing very good pace throughout. Something we, as Francesco Largo goes up in there as well. Nail coming through round the final corner, down the start-finish straight to set their lap time. Just to let everyone know, it says that we've got 15 drivers at the moment, but we will be going up to 20 once we borrow some of the Tier 2 drivers.
Yeah, a couple of them have joined already, I believe. I just saw Schumacher's name pop up at the very bottom, and it's an opportunity not just for the drivers in Tier 1 because of those missing, but also the drivers in Tier 2 to show us what they can really do. We have a Ferrari 1-2 at the moment, a Mercedes 3-4, and, it should be a few more times being thrown in. Andrea heading through the first sector, but he's invalidated on his first run, and there we go. Schumacher is the first one to pick a car. He might have DNF from the Tier 2 race, I'm not sure, but either way, he is missing from... Well, he is the only Tier 2 driver to have joined us so far. I believe, of those drivers that are supposed to be coming in, I believe we have Simbarox, Kevin Zunneberg, Chris RBL, Wards, and, the slightly controversial one of Typical. I'm not sure whether he will be showing up in the end, as I know there's been a lot of discussion about Typical's selection. And, of course, Andrea actually isn't on the team list, but he actually is racing. He managed to make it last minute. So I don't know what that's adjusted, but that means that I think one of those Tier 2 drivers is going to have to miss out. There's only one reserve from Tier 1, and that is Gavroche. Everybody else is a full-time driver.
Gavroche in 7th at the moment, which... good as a reserve to showcase their ability, as Andrea, unfortunately, 2 laps invalidated into the Maggots and Beckett sector, the turns 3, 4 and 5, not able to get it hooked up at the moment. But it's one of those sets of corners that is very much, when you hook it up, it feels amazing. But when you don't, it costs you big time.
I think that's just this circuit as a whole, to be fair. Well, the first sector especially. But I think it is just the whole circuit. It feels so good to get it right. And we've had our 17th. Kevin Zunneberg has joined us straight away. Those drivers that are in Tier 2, they'll have got warmed up to the circuit, won't they? Maybe they won't be as quick as we are seeing from the Tier 1 drivers, but they've certainly had their warm-up and are certainly ready to attack.
Certainly will be at all. Indeed, and sometimes just knowing the braking zone and everything like that. There goes Simba Rockswan when you've done so many laps, but it's also got a negative feel to it as well. And maybe you're constantly up, having the pressure, don't you? Having to put in lap after lap after lap, and sometimes it can, loss of concentration. These guys wouldn't have had a break for, at the end of the race, it would be near on 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah, you can make that argument for the Tier 1 drivers racing alongside the Tier 2 drivers, though, as they'll want to be quicker than that. They'll expect to be quicker than them, but because they've had that warm-up, they will be a little bit, they'll be into the rhythm of things, I think it's fair to say, and so their pace will be decent, even if maybe the side-by-side might be lacking, because that seems to be the first thing to go when you have a long stint. Schumacher goes off of the circuit, out of the first sector, and he did set a good first sector, and I was talking about how good everybody else's first sectors were, and that was a little bit off of the pace, but of course he had his issues at the end of the sector, so I'm not surprised that is the way that it's gone, and he is going to continue on. I don't think he's going to this is going to be a particularly competitive time because of the issues that he faced in that sector 1, but everybody else is out on their second stint, and he's against the grain, so if he's able to save his ERS, save his tyres, and save his fuel for another lap, then I think he's going to be in a better place than if he'd have set that one there.
Might well do indeed, but the slight spin didn't help, and also out of turn 1, that cost. Well, there was a bit of spin there for Schumacher as well. But let's go on board with Quantum, a Tier 1 veteran when it comes to things nowadays, I would say, heading up into turn 1 to set their second flying lap of the evening.
Yeah, and of course, Quantum is always a name that you expect to be on this grid. Never really one that you'd expect to be at the top, but of course, with the first two in the championship, the two quote-unquote title protagonists, if you can call them at that after 3 rounds, with them missing, then you'll be seeing some new names up the top, and for the likes of Quantum, that is where they'd be expecting / hoping to be this evening. Quantum heading through the first sector, and decent lap time heading through the second one now, and looking to improve on his 30.9. Best lap so far, still Justin's first lap with a 1 minute 30.569, and that is 300ths ahead of Francesco Largo and 600ths ahead of Oscar in third place. And so it is Shazoo Cedar Igniters 1, 2, 3, 4, and Silo taking that 5th place, hoping to close that gap. It's 7/10 at the moment, but Quantum will be the first one to see what he can do in comparison to those laps, because they know what the bankers are like now. They know what sort of pace to expect and to hope for, and now it's just their chance to chase it.
Yeah, let's see what Quantum could do for it into the final 2 corners, 19 and 20. Notoriously a little bit tricky when it comes to track extension at the exit of turn 19. Down the start-finish straight low, looks relatively good, and it's 2.5 up into 6th place. But nothing crazy expected there. And teammate Samuel Barker should be on a bit of a quicker lap time, but only 1/1000th of a second quicker. Do end up going a bit quicker, but nothing to write home about. Only up into 9th place for the time being. As Silo thrown themselves up into P3. Oscar's invalidated. So is Volakongan. It's difficult to try and find a driver that hasn't invalidated. Justin slightly up on their lap time in this one, coming through turns number 16, 17 and 18, the big triple right-hander.
Yeah, and he's a 1/1000th of a second up on his lap times. We've had our 19th and our 20th join, and it's not going to be going off of the list. Instead, it is Osku, and it is going to be Nico Rassenberg, who is a big character in the esports scene, for better or for worse. But both of them, to be fair, but they both come in and we'll be expecting to do decently tonight, as Justin went quicker with a 30.4 than Francesco Largo beat his 30.4 by just the 200th of a second. So the margins at the top for the two Ferraris are quite minimal. I think it's fair to say that they've probably practiced together. They probably know exactly what each other are capable of, and they're just exercising their right to attack this evening and demonstrating exactly why they are Tier 1 drivers.
Yeah, great sets of lap time up there as well. Epic Vale possibly has a chance to showcase what they're about this race as well, as Simba Rocks one invalidates into the final corner. That's not ideal for the Kick Sauber driver, as all 20 drivers now ready and waiting to go. We've all got them in the lobby perfectly now. So we're still missing quite a few lap times. A lot of drivers unable to set their first banker, let alone a provisional lap time that will see them higher up on the board.
Yeah, Andrea and Schumacher in particular, drivers that have really struggled to get their laps going, and Schumacher is actually on a lap now, and we'll see what the Alpine's able to do. He's not invalidated in that first sector, but he is into that second one, and does appear to be pushing as hard as he possibly can to offset the deficit that I'm sure that he naturally has as a result of being a Tier 2 driver versus being a Tier 1 driver, heading through the final sector now. And the Alpine looks to maybe at least match his teammate Gavroche with a 30.8. But if he can do anything to improve on it, that would be even better. But I think it's a case of having to lower your expectations and just see what you can do, as opposed to anything else. In Schumacher, final couple of corners for the Alpine. Big slide out of the penultimate corner and then into the final one, just getting easy on the throttle. And it's going to be a lap time of a 31.0, so just outside the target 30 time. But not too bad of a banker after woes early on.
Definitely one to set in for the time being, as yellow flag, I think, for Simba Rocks one coming round the triple right-hander. Here comes Nico then to start their first lap time, and I'm just checking on the board. This could be their one and only chance to set a lap time. 4 minutes 20 remaining. Not much lap time, not much time in the session remaining for them to do another lap time if this is a full lap. Is there really? And I know they're joining late from Tier 2, but a lot of pressure just to produce one lap and one lap only, and an invalidation is, well, their trouble really right now.
No, it's fine. They've got 4 minutes left. That's enough time for Nico to swap teams about 3 times. But yeah, it's not ideal when you invalidate on that first run. Andrea heading through the first sector to try and establish his first lap time of the session. He's the only one of the regular Tier 1 drivers to have not set a time so far. Dirk and Lawrence have retired from the session. I believe they had qualifying bans, so they will be starting from the back of the field. Andrea now going through the first sector, and he's been successful in not invalidating in said first sector. Now wide entry, going to a tight apex and then a wide exit out of the heavy braking zone and onto the straight now. And Andrea keeping it clean through the first sector.
All settled at the moment for the Haas driver, or the TRT Haas driver for the time being, into turn 12. Looking stable, relatively stable. It's purple, but I believe that is down to them not setting a lap time, or a timed lap time at the moment. But it looks like they backed off through turn 15. It's not as quick as it could have been.
Yeah, not quite, and again he'll be a little bit disappointed with it. And I think he's not got very high expectations of himself today. As into the pits Andrea comes, and with 2 minutes 40 left in the session, he's only really going to have one shot at a lap time here today. As he's coming in. Most drivers are coming out for their final runs. Yeah,
it is indeed, and the Monaco Master is just about to set their last lap of qualifying, going slow into the final corner and power down. What do you reckon for Nail tonight? What do you reckon? Obviously a street circuit master, but not so much in, not saying they're not fast, they are very fast still, but doesn't seem to hold the same pace at normal circuits, at circuits like this.
At good circuits. No street circuit is a good circuit. Although Monaco's a pretty decent one, because all these new ones that have popped up over the last few years haven't taken my fancy. But I think it's It's difficult, I think, especially for a driver like him to adapt, because of course there are some drivers that just prefer those tight, twisty circuits and the narrowness of a street circuit. And he seems to be particularly struggling tonight for pace, being the slowest of all with his 31.193. And well, he's going to just hope for an opportunity to get his lap time up to the very top of this field. And yeah, I think for him it's just a night where he's going to manage expectations again.
Now, I'm not 100% sure if there's a slight glitch in the lobby or not, but definitely saw him like coming around the final corner to start their lap time, but it's still saying it's an out lap on my screen. So I'm hoping they are actually on a lap time.
Yeah, he's pushing. I know it says that for me too. He is pushing, but it's just for whatever reason. Well, I'm not gonna say the particular reason, because the reason is obvious and it's one particular company. But Nagio, it's 30.8, so it's an improvement. And, well, it's certainly not an out lap. It's certainly a push lap. And it may well be his final one of the session as, well, Francesco Largo just starts his final lap time of the session. Of course, the pole man so far. Look and see what he is able to do. And you've got the likes of Epic Vale, who's invalidated and slid. So that's going to be the end of Epic Vale's qualifying session. And so he will not be able to challenge for that pole position. 16 seconds left to go. I believe Silo's in that final sector, and I believe he's up on his time.
Quantum goes up into P3, but let's have a look at Silo now. There's a Haas, I believe, of Andrea trying to get across the line in time. Just about manages it. Wonderful timing there for Andrea, but let's see what they can do. But here is Silo around the final corner. Can they do anything against the incredible Ferraris that have indeed? This could end up being a bit spicier than we were expecting at the top end.
It could be, and Silo up to the very top of the field with a 4.21. Francesco Largo heading into the final sector. He's improved by 600ths of a second in the first. He's down in the second, so I don't think he's going to be able to challenge for that pole position. So my eyes turn to Justin. He was improving in the first sector. He's improving even more in the second, and I think this is going to be where pole position is going. I think it's going to be to the Ferrari team, but it's not the rapid Francesco Largo. It looks like it might be going the way of Justin. Final few corners now for a lot of the drivers, so we're going to see a lot of times come down, and well, it's Kevin Zunneberg unable to get a lap time on the board, invalidated on his final run, so he will not be setting a good lap time. And Justin wide out of the penultimate corner, he is not going to improve. That is hugely disappointing.
And Volokongan slipping at the final corner as well. Big problems for a load of drivers. Here comes Gavroche, unfortunately unable to do anything that time around. Andrea has invalidated as well. And there goes Nico up into P7 for the Tier 2 driver. Not a bad little run, that.
Yeah, that is it's very interesting for the Williams to be right up there at this point in time. He's had his fair share of setups that he can use, to be fair, because of all the teams he's been in. So he has he's got a lot of chances if he practices enough and he experiments enough to be up there at the top. And a 30.646 is a very good lap time, all things considered, for the Williams. And I'll be keeping an eye on him heading into race day. He's actually qualified above our Tier 1 champion from last season, Volokongan. So a very good qualifying performance, is fair to say.
That is indeed. And just having a quick look in the chat for the console Tier 1 guys, and it looks like Justin was saying he was 1.4 up. That is ridiculous. Anyway, let's have a quick look down the order. I'm hoping that's like one tenth up. But anyway, Silo, Francesco Largo, Justin, Quantum, Oscar, Epic Vale, Nika Raz, Volokongan, Venom, Samuel Barker, Gravroch, Nail, Wards, Schumacher were able to set lap times. Non-lap times setting for Dirk, Simbaroxon, Oscu, Andrea, Kevin and Lawrence there, and that is that set, done and dusted. Contrast of retirement performances, I suppose, for the two drivers with qualifying bans. Lawrence right at the bottom of it, and Dirk at the top of those drivers that couldn't set lap times.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that stacked out, but it is what it is. And we head into race day now with a very interesting scenario on our hands. It's open as the top two in the championship are not here tonight. And so a lot of these different drivers have an opportunity to demonstrate themselves. We've seen a demonstration in qualifying from Nico Rassenberg. He made his way into the top 10. And, well, Gavroche, a reserve all by himself, just outside the top 10 wards, 13th. So a few lap times there that I don't think we necessarily were expecting. And so those Tier 2 drivers are going to be defending for their lives. The Tier 1 drivers down at the bottom as well will be attacking with their lives. The likes of Dirk, the likes of Andrea, the likes of Lawrence are going to see what they can do from 15th, 18th and last respectively.
So the top 3 in the championship not racing tonight. That's Ryderdal, Matteo and Azim. We do have Francesco Largo racing, Justin and Venom, who are all on 18 points as well. So they could see some really good points score up tonight. Something I completely forgot to ask you was who you think was going to take qualifying pole. But who do you think is going to take race victory? And I'm going to ask the guys in the chat as well what they think, who's going to take victory tonight. But how about yourself?
Well, I mean, I think it's very hard to look past those who qualified well because this is a circuit where a lot of the drivers do specialise. So I think that Silo, Francesco Largo, Justin could be all up there. It does look as though Shazoo have had good preparations for this Kota race. So expect to see someone like Francesco Largo, Justin, Oscar being up there at the very, very top. But of course, as I think we've come to know, I'm quite a devil's advocate, so I'm rooting for Silo.
Silo for yourself tonight. Okay. You know what, because it's so open, and I still think Francesco Largo is going to do something, but I might go Justin, just because if they can keep it together, they look like they're really strong tonight. Yeah,
they certainly do, and well, I just think Shazoo look like they've prepared whatever setup it is really, really well. So whoever is doing the work over at Shazoo, they've done a very, very good job, and I'm ignoring the second part of that acronym because I think it just sounds much better as Team Shazoo. But yeah, the 5 lights are very, very soon to get underway, and we'll see how our predictions have done. I've won one of these at one point in this season, haven't I?
Yeah, you've definitely won one. I'm going to say possibly 2. Oh, you got the qualifying right for Francesco Largo. Everything else we have both been quite wide of the mark, I think. But yeah, we won't go too much into detail. We will go to, well, they said going at 33 minutes past, so they've obviously readied. Oh well, I hope they've readied up. We are going to go to the race screen though and get ourselves ready for this one. Any final words before the lights hit us?
I mean, they're going to have to manage themselves into Big Red. It's going to be a very interesting first corner, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's any accidents, so just keep outside of it as the 5 lights are coming on. On for 5 red lights here in Circuit of the Americas. They didn't hold for very long, and up towards turn 1 they go. Francesco Largo and Justin fighting tooth and nail to find a way, and Silo was swamped by Francesco Largo. Justin tried to switch back on Silo's trying to switch back on Francesco Largo. This is really good tight racing at the front. Quantum's trying to get involved as well, but nothing doing at the moment. Surely not. They're going side by side through, and they've all somehow come through. Well, the top 5 at least have come through unscathed. Yeah, I mean, I was about to say, because the top 5 have come through unscathed, but Andrea got squeezed. One of the drivers involved in that incident was Kevin Zunneberg. I believe the other one was Osku, and they just seemed to squeeze Andrea, and he spun round and out of the competition here today as it's 3 wide into the braking zone between Dirk, Schumacher and Niall Gio. Niall squeezed out, contact with Schumacher, and that opens up the opportunity in the door for Simba Rocks to make his way through as well. Down to the next braking zone they go. Niall Gio is going to have the slipstream as Schumacher is going to send it to the outside line, but it's pretty... I think this is going to be the most overtakes we've seen in one lap on F1 25, let alone in this season's races. Yeah, it's been absolutely, well, hammer and tong. Silo's managed to hold on at the top, but Oscar, Quantum and Epic Veil all battling and squabbling away with, is that Venom trying to get involved as well, but the 2 in front of them, Quantum and Epic Veil still fighting, squabbling away. Epic Veil's managed to hold on to the position for the time being, but Quantum is going to be chomping at the bit to try and get back past with Volokongan waiting in the wing, and Nico
holding into P9 at the moment. Let's have a quick look at positional changes. Nico, unfortunately, has dropped 2 position. Biggest losers at the moment, though, are Niall and Wards, who have dropped 3 and 4 places, respectively.
Yeah, the way that Schumacher's been racing here today, he is desperate to get forward, and that's partially the reason for Niall Gio dropping down the field. They just went 3 wide, and 3 wide doesn't really go anywhere, especially not at this circuit. And that was where the Haas driver lost out in the mid 2 lower packs. He's now down into 15th place. I believe he was 13th before that incident. And well, it wasn't necessarily an incident, just side-by-side racing, and Niall just unfortunately got squeezed out. So he ended up dropping down to 15th place. And yeah, we've got the drivers filtering through as the first doses of DRS are enabled for everybody apart from Kevin Zunneberg and Andrea, who were within range, or getting closer to being within range, but unfortunately are not anywhere near close. Osku is going to go for a move on Wards and makes it stick on the Red Bull. That is P17 for the Aston Martin, who, it's fair to say, hasn't had the greatest of preparations. He's had technical problems pretty much ever since the F1 game came out, and well, he's done well to get up this evening and keep on pace. He's going to try and stay within the DRS. At the moment, he's actually ahead of one of the Tier 1 drivers, of course, that being Andrea, who hasn't had the greatest start. Silo sets the fastest out to the front of the field. As it looks like he's starting to break away from Francesco Largo, you know. I mean, the Ferrari's closing back in with DRS, but Silo's gap opened up to 7/10 as Kevin Zunneberg. Is he going to retire? He's going to retire within 2 laps. I don't think that's particularly, that makes much sense.
No, especially with, you know, I don't want to say the likelihood, but the possibility of safety cars, and maybe they're just let's brush over that one as we go on board with Simba Rocks one, who's got Niall for company behind, and watching Schumacher and Dirk squabble away just ahead as well. So lots of action throughout, and Silo, you know what, doing a really good job of holding up at the moment at the front and trying to pull away.
Yeah, and Silo actually opening up the gap to 3/4 of a second until the DRS is closing in. And this is sometimes what some drivers find is the problem with DRS. You can work so hard and open up that gap like Silo has, but then it can close right back in. But once you're outside of that DRS, just like Andrea is at the bottom of the field now, that is where you're really going to struggle. And that is why Kevin Zunneberg retired, because he didn't feel as though he was going to be able to make it within that DRS. As I've just had a look, and look, a few of those drivers have actually only had just a couple of corners. So Osku, for example, retired early on. It actually lasted 1 corner, but he had an incident with, according to his tweet, Wards and typical, which is why he retired from that race, and that is why he is coming back with a vengeance in this Tier 1 race. And so far, not doing too badly, 17th place, so at the back of the pack, but there's potential to move forward.
Potential indeed, as just ahead, Dirk and just ahead of Wards, trying to get through back into it, is Samuel Barker and Dirk. Dirk is trying to have a look at the inside of Samuel Barker, but it's not happening on this occasion, and it's becoming, well, very, very frustrating for Dirk, because he knows he's got more pace, he just can't find a way through.
Yeah, in 12th place at the moment is where they stand, and he's got to think about the fact that he's got Schumacher behind him as well, who could be opening up the door to try and go for a move at any available opportunity. The Alpine is not one to shy away from a move, and he may well try to set one up if he can get a better run out of the corner, but not quite yet is the answer to that eternal question as to whether he's going to be able to close in. So he stays in behind, does the Alpine, and well, he stays in 13th place as the gaps up the top are opening up, and it's side. I can't say whether Silo's pushing him or not. I don't think he is. I think he's just preparing himself, because he did that pushing in the first few laps. He found out that it didn't pay off, so he's just waiting, I think, for this first stint to get towards the end, and he's saving those tyres, which of course are not going to be affected by any sort of dirty air, because there is nobody in ahead of him. Everybody is on a set of the medium compound of tyres, so it looks like everybody's going to be going for similar strategies, but Silo is going to have to nail it, because there can be any sort of difference in the strategies, like 1 lap going in earlier or 1 lap going in later could have a significant effect. Definitely
Could do indeed. Apologies about the 2 battery dying on me. I thought I charged my spare battery, but it didn't go through for some unknown reason. But I think at the moment, maybe with Silo, do we see that maybe they're just pushing in the first sector to get that 7 tenths of a second gap to Francesco Largo, just to ensure they keep the lead down the back straight?
I won't make a childish joke about what you just said. Yes, I think that's exactly what he's trying to do, and he's just trying to ward off. I made that joke the other day, to be fair, and it got 53 likes on TikTok, so I'll take it. But I think that's exactly what he's doing. I mean, he's opening up that 7/10 gap, so Francesco Largo is not going to be within sniping range, because he gets to within about 6/10 of a second at the end of that straight, and then he gets to within 3/10 down the main straight. So Silo is managing this one perfectly at the moment, and it's fair to say he's not using much in terms of battery, tyres, anything really, in order to break away. That will come later in the stint when he realises how much better those tyres are than the two Shizou drivers in behind.
Well, the two Shizou drivers, the three Shizou drivers, because there's Oscar as well. But Oscar does, and it's a perfect segue to that, because Oscar doesn't seem to. Well, it's losing a little bit of pace to Justin and Francesco just ahead.
Yeah, it looks like he is. It looks like he might drop out of DRS within the next couple of laps. He's 9 tenths behind, and Quantum's just he's dropping in and out of the DRS on Epic Fails, or he's dropping in and out. Yeah, he's dropping in and out of the DRS on Epic Fail. So I think we might be seeing the order shake up in a little bit, just because those drivers will drop out of the DRS, and so they will not have the benefits that the drivers behind will have. But of course, they can always push to make it back in, and all these sorts of things that can sway a race. And I think that these drivers will realise how pertinent it is that they stay within that DRS range, because it brings you so many advantages. And again, Francesco Largo 7 tenths behind Silo. He's managing this perfectly at the front as the Red Bull, and he's keeping those Shizou drivers at bay. Of course, those three Shizou drivers, not just those two, because Oscar is also managing the gap all right. If he's aiming to have about 8 tenths of a gap between himself and Justin, knowing that the dirty air is going to affect him at about 6-7 difference, then I think he's managing this one in an exemplary fashion.
See how it will continue to break down. Obviously, the two DRS detection zone, detection zones are just after turn 10 and then just before turn 19, which is where Oscar is at the moment. And well, within the DRS of the car ahead, Quantum has now dropped massively behind Epic Vale. Earlier, those two were fighting away. I say fighting, squabbling away for position side by side for the majority of the track. I bet Epic Vale is happy that they managed to get past before that break in the train, as Venom now is desperate to find a way through Quantum, and so is Volokongan, and I'd say Nico Rasenberg trying to get through as well, all looking very feisty.
Yeah, I don't blame them, as Quantum clearly isn't pushing that hard, or maybe he's got some sort of damage. It doesn't look like he has, but maybe he has internal damage or something like that, because the gap between himself and Epic Vale is huge, and it feels like he should just succumb the position, maybe take his foot off the gas for the next couple of laps, and then see just what he's able to do, or what the other drivers are able to do, give them a platform to try and push, and then he can just follow through with the DRS as well. But yeah, it feels like that 1.8 seconds is just going to keep growing and keep growing and keep growing, especially if Oscar's gap to Justin remains as it is, and Epic Vale remains in behind Oscar as it is, and they will just continue to open up that gap, break away, and absolutely, why not? I don't blame them. Nargio looks like he might have dropped out of the DRS on Simba Rocks 1 in the meantime. That is going to be a very close one, I'm sure. Simba is going to try and break free of that DRS, because he can sense points on the horizon, I'd imagine, on his Tier 1 bow, and that would be a very, very good performance, considering he's literally just hopped over from that Tier 2 race where he picked up a podium. Early pit stop for Venom, who's hoping for a change of fortunes.
Yeah, as well as Schumacher as well, both deciding that they can go from the end on a set of hards at this point and do something a little bit special, I assume. But I'm guessing Venom's done it to get away from Quantum.
Yeah, I'd imagine that he's done that because you can get about 1 to 2 seconds on an undercut. So I'd imagine he's done that just to try and get within the main leading train. So it makes complete sense. But whether it's going to pay off is another question. As there's yellow flags out on the circuit, I'm not quite sure. I believe that was Ward's having problems with his tyres and just getting them warmed up. As well, he's actually lost his front wing end plate. So whatever's happened to Ward's, that's really cost him in this race, and that means that he's going to drop off of that field. And well, he's 7 seconds now off of Osku. So I think that might be the end of Ward's competitive race, as he and Andreas are significantly off the field.
Such a shame. Doing a stand-up job really in this one. Lauren's getting past Simba Rock's one, as we missed that going into 12, but still fighting away is Simba Roxhorn, and Lawrence desperately trying to find a place and a position to get through, but Lawrence holding that, well, Kick Sauber at bay for the time being. Is anyone else going to take the jump and go into the pits this lap? It doesn't look like it. Everyone else is willing to stay out a few more laps here.
Yeah, it feels like this is a little bit early. Samuel Barker, the only driver to come in. I feel like they're going to come in within the next 2 laps. So I think lap 11 is going to be the prime pit stop time, which means that Venom and Schumacher are coming very, very, very early. So Ward's in, but that's to be expected because he had picked up that damage. But it feels like that's a very early time for them to have dived into the pits. And of course, we'll see how it pans out. As he'll definitely gain on the circuit, as he's now. Well, this Venom, for example, is 4 seconds up on Samuel Barker, 5 seconds in fact, if you take in the gap to Schumacher into account. So 5 seconds up. It's worked, but how long those hard compound tyres are going to last, I'm not sure.
Yeah, could we see well, we've seen a few times this season drivers have problems with tyre life. Could we be seeing a Cheeky's 2-stop strategy as Volakongan getting past Quantum there by these guys that have pitted a bit early, as they push their push their hard tyres much harder and then be quick at the end?
I think that's a very, very good potential. I think there's those hards are going to last about 20 laps. So Venom, Schumacher, Samuel Barker and Ward are going to be stretching them to the absolute maximum if they take them to the end of this race. Venom has made light work of Schumacher, and he's now trying to. He's made light work of Andrea, and he's now trying to break up to where Oxcu is, as everybody will continue for what looks like another lap. Is there going to be anybody who takes that gamble and does make the dive into the pit lane? It doesn't appear to be of the main protagonist that anybody is going to do that at this point in time, and so we continue on for another lap. Andrea, 3 second time penalty. He was not confident in his abilities heading into this race, and unfortunately for him, that has really come to fruition. And I think the next lap is where the pit window opens. I think the majority of drivers will pit lap 11, lap 12, just to get that undercut, which appears to be pretty decently strong if Venom's results are anything to go by. But yeah, I think this is going to be around where they're going to be thinking about pitting.
Yeah, Venom looking, well, really quick, really, if we're looking at it rightly, pulling away from Andrea, obviously on the harder medium compound tyres, and Schumacher doesn't have an answer to it either. But let's see if we can get on board with Schumacher, because I think they are going to get a move very close to the back end of Andrea. Schumacher should get the move down this back straight.
Yes, Schumacher is going to have a go, at least, you'd imagine, as getting past Andrea. So pulling to that inside, and yeah, you knocked it down pretty nice and easy. He's pushing on that circuit to try and catch up to Venom and try and gain the benefits of that DRS. But of course, Venom won't want that, because he's going to want to be a lone soldier in this one. The pace that he's demonstrated so far would just exemplify that and demonstrate that he doesn't need somebody else to pull him along. He can pull himself along perfectly all right. 3 second time penalty for track limits. And yeah, that's disappointing for somebody who's struggled. As I said, lap 11 was going to be where the majority of the pit stops happened. I was right, and we've had a number of drivers. Look at the leaders, though, as Silo is one of those drivers into the pit lane. Look at the leaders in comparison to where Venom is. because Venom now coming down towards turn 1, and it looks like he's going to filter into the pack. So a very well executed undercut for the B-Carb, and he's right now in the thick of things.
Yeah, this is, well, fair play to Venom. Going to cause Silo a little bit of trouble, but it may have caused Francesco Largo and Oscar some issues through all this. Justin leading the way right now. And, well, I wonder how far Justin is going to drop now, having to do an extra lap on those mediums. But I think we said race in, race out, that one lap extra younger tyres can always make the difference.
Yeah, one lap would make a whole lot of difference. And, well, there's 3 laps between the two. And Oscar is going to make his way past Simbarox one. That is the fight for the bottom of this leading pack of those drivers that haven't come in yet, which could have a huge factor to play in the leaders pack, if they indeed do not come into the pits on this lap, which they would be very silly not to, because of the fact that Silo has now made his way into the DRS on Venom, and they may have had an inadvertent effect on this battle already. Schumacher 3-second time penalty. Justin into the pit lane. He's going to make a switch. Continuing on, Volokongan, continuing on, Gavroche, and continuing on, Dirk as well. And I believe everybody else is into the pit lane, so that is going to be interesting. Those drivers are going to have fresher hards than everybody else, but of course they're going to be struggling towards the end of their stint as all those drivers come out now. Justin, the peak of them, in 9th place, but he's going to have those fresh tyres with which to attack. Venom is going to really struggle towards the end of this race with that tyre.
Definitely will do. Nearly dropping out of the DRS range of Silo as well, and has done. I wonder if that is going to be Silo's race now, because it's 1.2 between Venom and Silo, and all of a sudden that's huge news, as Justin dropped just ahead of Schumacher, thankfully, but dropping 2 positions in the train of things would not have done them any good at all, really.
No, it certainly wouldn't have. And well, I think it's one of those things where they wanted to fight on circuit because their races aren't going very well, but those drivers at the back of the field, it made sense for them to come in and just make a change, because they would have been caught up in the leaders' battles. And you know what happens when drivers are caught up in leaders' battles, especially when those drivers will feel entitled to that track position, or at least those drivers trying to fight their way through will feel entitled to their track position. It could go all sorts of wrong, and so I'm glad they came into the pit lane. Those penalties coming in are very interesting. Dirk being one of them, Schumacher, Nargia and Simbarox all picking up track limit warnings as the last 3 drivers come into the pits. It's very interesting. I'd imagine most of those warnings would have been in the first sector, and Silo sets the fastest lap of the race as he extends his advantage and stretches his legs at the top of the field, and he is doing a very good job at the moment. He's 2.2 ahead of Francesco Largo in 2nd place, who's made his way past Venom, and it looks like natural order is about to be restored.
Yeah, goodness me, 2.3 seconds though. I'm just looking at that and I'm just thinking, okay, Justin and Francesco Largo are part of the whole Shazoo team, but as Team Ferrari for the evening, would you not have gambled and pushed it Francesco or Justin the lap before everyone planned to pit, or going like that? Or I don't know what's the best way, for them to have done this. Is the race now over and Silo's to lose?
Well, Volokongan went in a lap later, so they're clearly not all going for an identical strategy. Maybe they're just trying to pick up information as to what would be the best strategy for potential future races, of course, later seasons, as everybody just works it out and tries to allow themselves the opportunity to understand the game. It is season 1 on F1 25. And so they're just getting to know everything to do with the racing on this game, and this will continue on, I think, throughout the whole season, as it's the first ventures that a lot of these drivers will have on a lot of these tracks. COTA isn't a very popular one, I could imagine, and well, I can imagine, based on the general opinion, I quite like COTA, but I understand that it is not the most popular circuit in the world. But yeah, they will of course have practiced it for this race, and they'll be taking that data and taking it home for the rest of this game cycle, which is why Volokongan came in that a little bit later, and he I think it's fair to say they're going to scratch that strategy now. They're going to put it in the bin because he's in 11th place and he's not even in the DRS at Nico Rossenberg.
It's unfortunate for Volokongan, but someone that's doing well. I give them, tip your hat off to is Nico in 10th place right now. 2 lap tyre younger than Samuel Barker, 3 laps younger than Schumacher, and the same as Quantum just ahead. Schumacher's managing to hold in with Quantum at the moment, but this could be some really good point scoring for this Tier 2 driver.
Yeah, it really could, and it could stake his claim for a Tier 1 seat towards the end of this season and heading into the next. I know there's a few drivers that could be on the chopping block very soon because of the attendance, of course. We had to bring in a lot of reserve drivers this evening. Coming straight over from their race at 7 to a race at 8 p.m. And it feels like they are just, even if they don't have a great race today, if they're able to advertise themselves well enough and enough of a performance like Schumacher and Nico Rossenberg are doing at the moment, then they'll have a chance at next season's championship. As Justin makes his way past Oscar and moves up into 5th place. This is going to be a very good point scoring finish for Ferrari, it seems, in the much neglected, as far as league racing goes, Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, it's a shame because in real F1 it adds that extra spice, but it gets a little bit neglected, doesn't it? And it's a shame. But I'm going to keep on board with Nico at the moment because close to the back end, and it feels like this is the part of the race where, or at this moment in time, where we could see a break in the chain again because Schumacher is on so much older tyres.
Yes, he is, and it's just. I think that you're exactly right there, and it could allow the opportunity for those behind who were on better, more brand new tyres, the opportunity to break in. And Volokongan leading that line, and he has closed in on the last lap on Nico Rossenberg, and he's made it to within that DRS. So this might be the turnover point as to which strategy is the better one, as there is a switch for 3rd place as well. Epic Vale up to 3rd, and Venom down to 4th.
Yeah, I knew as soon as I would concentrate on one set of drivers coming through, the action would happen elsewhere as Dirk gets past Gravroch, trying to get themselves into the points. Let's have a look at the penalty situation in more detail. Schumacher on 3 seconds, Samuel Barker on 3 seconds, Dirk on 6 seconds, Nail on 3 seconds, and Simba Roxon on 3 seconds as well. So that won't do their confidence any good. And positional changes. Schumacher, while pitting earlier to gain, same as Venom, to gain positions, they could see that come to bite them a little bit later on in the race. Lap 16 of 28, and well, the way things stand, you said Silo would win this race, and at the moment he's sitting pretty, 2.6 seconds ahead, as Nico getting passed by Volokongan.
Call me Johnny Vegas, the way I'm the Oracle. No, I think that's just it's just the way the cookie crumbles, and it's the way that ETA have gone the opposite way to the way that the Shizou drivers have done today, and it appears to have worked in their and my favour as well. And he's 2.4 up the field. The way he's been able to break free of Francesco Largo as well is pretty impressive. I think that's fair to say, just because Francesco is a very, very quick driver at the best of times, and he's demonstrating that by breaking free of the DRS of Epic Vale, and Epic Vale in his own right a very quick driver, breaking through the DRS of Venom. So it's the raw driver pace coming out this evening, and Venom, who had that undercut, is now feeling the effects as he tries to defend his tyres to the end. A couple of moves further down, Volokonga making a lunge on Schumacher and getting it done. Moving up, my apologies, into 9th place, and Nico Rossenberg alongside Schumacher, hoping to take that 10th place off him and hoping to drop him down 2 positions, but he takes a 3-second time penalty hit and squeezes the Alpine wide, but he's managed to make the move stick, and he manages to move up to 10th place, which could be important because Schumacher has that 3-second time penalty as well, and with Gavroche 2.2 behind, this is the opportunity for them to open up the gap as Schumacher comes into the pit lane, hits the wall, and that is not going to be ideal for the Alpine, as I'm not sure why he was coming into the pits in the first. Well, he's retired from the session, so sorry, I don't understand that, but he's out of the session now, and we are down to just the 17 drivers.
Wow, that is Yeah, that is something. Justin overtaking Venom, which will get them back into the podium fight, but just 1.1, so nearly out of that. But it's a shame to lose Schumacher from this, especially when they had a chance of, well, still fighting for points. But obviously that earlier pit stop has really held them and cost them big time there. As I'm just saying, where else battles could rage on. Venom trying desperately to hold on to Justin ahead. And, you know, what does Francesco Largo do here? Do they hold up Epic Vale and let Justin get back into it and then use the SCI team to round out the podium?
I think so, and I think that's what they're going to do. Is Oscar 3-second time penalty that could have an influence on the podium finish. And well, Justin is trying to push to close back in to that DRS on Epic Vale, but it's not quite going to work, I don't think, because Epic Vale looks like he might have that pace. But Justin, no, he's managed to stay within it, to be fair to him, and he's pushed incredibly hard to make it into it in the first place. He does have it. Two very, very quick penalties in succession. Wards and Quantum, picking them up. Wards, I think it's fair to say, has not had the greatest of races today, and finds himself the last of the drivers, still in 11.9 seconds off of the pack. And yeah, I think at this point in the race, with 10 laps to go, I'm expecting a very spicy battle for all the final podium spots. I don't think that the Shizou drivers are going to let each other go in a hurry. I think that they're going to fight. I think Epic Vale's going to fight right to the very death.
See how it all go down, but Silo pulling away even further from Francesco Largo. Now it's 3.6 seconds, and he must be, well, they must be over the moon with the fact that Epic Vale is causing the Shizou drivers a little bit of a headache tonight, and doing a very good job of causing a headache to the Shizou team.
Yes, and well, they're going to admire what he's done, but also question why what he's done has beaten out what they've done, because of course they had a lot of drivers on the pace on a similar strategy, and somehow Silo's managed to top them all, and he's done an incredible job. Wouldn't be surprised if Shizou just do what they did with Isam Pookie, buy him a PC and make him join their team, as Gavroche makes his way past Dirk up into 11th place. But yeah, Silo doing very well at the top of the field, and eking that gap out now to 4.3 seconds, and it looks like the Red Bull could be going for a very, very easy, well, it looks easy on paper victory, but I know it's a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah, it's concentration now from battling and having, you know, it's a different set of mentality. You know, you're worried about the driver behind, making sure you keep the distance and everything like that. And now it's all about, right, let's just keep the car pointing in the right direction. Let's not lose concentration. I don't have anyone behind me to worry about anymore. You kind of maybe lose a little bit of that concentration you may have had beforehand.
Yeah, and that's the only real way that those drivers behind are going to be able to make it back into where Silo is. Whether it's just going to be that lack of concentration. Venom demonstrating a bit of a lack of concentration in picking up a 3-second time penalty. Not the first, and probably not the last in this Grand Prix, and he certainly wasn't the last to pick up a penalty, because Woods just got a 10-second for speeding in the pit lane as he came in to retire. He called his Tier 1 race to a close, and his massive evening of racing to a close as well. Of course, those who raced in Tier 2 and will have had 2 hours of this COTA circuit. Not a particularly popular one amongst the drivers. I'm not quite sure why, and they are going to take a rest before next week, and a track that a lot of them are going to have to prepare for.
Samuel Barker being overtaken by Nico, but the switchback is available, and there's contact between the two of them. Nico was, well, desperate to have a little bit more of the right-hand side of the track there, or left-hand side of the track if you were facing that way, but both not giving up a square inch of the track there. They're desperate to hold on to those positions, and that's allowed Quantum to run up the road a little bit. Samuel Barker doing the teamwork play there.
Yeah, Samuel Barker is just working well at the moment to try and pick up as many points as they possibly can, and at the moment that appears to be working, both of them in points finishes, but one of them will drop out of it as a result of them having a penalty, and Gavroche at the moment staying penalty free. But watch that space, because that could all come to blows at the very end of this Grand Prix. 8 laps to go, and it's where that concentration might start to wane. Those drivers in the pack knowing that they're not really going to have to fight very hard for these positions, as well, this is just the way that the game has gone, where it's a strategic game this year more than an outright pace game. And yeah, at the moment, that's the way that this game has gone, and that's the way the cookie crumbles, and that's the way that these drivers are going to have to drive it. But yeah, Samuel Barker letting Quantum go very easily at this point, as Dirk makes his way past on Gavroche, and I'd imagine the Alpine's probably picked up a warning for that, as was squeezed to the outside line. And well, I'm going to have a look actually. He's picked up 2 warnings, so he's on his final one, so he's going to have to be very careful. But if he is, he's going to reap the rewards.
Definitely will indeed, especially with Samuel Barker and Nico, well, squabbling ahead, losing ground to Quantum. Volokongan's actually caught up to the back end of Oscar and Venom here. So there's hope is not all lost for the Mercedes driver of Volokongan and reigning champion. Let's just add that in as well.
Yeah, I mean, just calling him a Mercedes driver would be a disservice, I think, as that goes up to 9 seconds worth of penalties. And, well, that's unfortunate for the V-Cup down in 11th place, who pretty much has guaranteed that he won't be picking up points here today. But as we mentioned earlier, he might be picking up valuable information for his team in case this comes up in the next season of WOR, or in fact, the upcoming World Online Racing Legacy Division season, which, of course, saw Shizou qualify automatically alongside ET8, so these drivers are going to have to get very used to fighting Silo, I'd imagine, as they were all 3 of the top teams at the start of this at the end of last campaign, and therefore at the start of this campaign.
Definitely, and you know what, Epic Vale, I just want to revisit Epic Vale, the battle for P2, pulling over here to the left hand side, trying to clear themselves from that dirty air, trying to ensure the tyres don't wear too much. It's good, smart play, but also he's doing themselves a really good job of just... It hasn't really been their season. They've had a couple of knockdowns and knockbacks, and 9th in the table championship standings for only 15 points, but this is a good result. Even if they don't finish on the podium, this is a really good result for Epic Vale.
It certainly is, and it will give them a lot of confidence heading into the next few rounds, and you need a lot of confidence around the Monaco Grand Prix, which is the next round of the season. But yeah, it's going to give him a lot of confidence in trying to chase down the drivers at the top of the Drivers' Championship as well. Of course, they are not racing tonight. Volokongans has now caught up to the Shizou pack, and is scything his way through them, making his way past Venom, and then making his way past Oscar up into P5. I don't think this is going to be... I think this is going to come down to the very last lap as to who's going to get this podium.
All of a sudden, I think you are right, because Vologongan's brought this back up. Oscar's going to be within DRS. It's brought the train back together, back down to 8th place Quantum, and then all of a sudden, the podium position, all it takes is a driver to have a little bit of a mishap, and I'm not saying this will happen. I'm not saying these guys will crash or anything, but it brings that possibility.
Yeah, it certainly does. The last few laps on this game have always been scrappy, and so it really does test the racecraft of these drivers, and that's what is going to be tested at the moment. Dirk and Nico Rassenberg certainly testing each other's racecraft, and Gavroche trying to get involved in that battle, but knowing he doesn't have to fight too hard to pick up what will be 9th place as it stands. But of course, he'd rather have it on circuit and have it guaranteed rather than anything else. And actually, Gavroche going down the inside of Nico Rassenberg now and getting squeezed out. So that is not going to be... He's not going to be very happy about that one, I don't think, but he's still going to be pulling alongside. And Nico Rassenberg has dropped the position in the end. He saw that Gavroche was just so much faster than him, and he decided that that was not going to be his battle. And so he dropped down and will hope, I think, to scythe his way through and follow Gavroche through. And it will be particularly important for him to, especially as we head towards the final 5 laps of the American Grand Prix.
That was a really good move, actually, around the outside from Gavroche, I think. Holding in there, he could have backed out and could have wimped out of the move, let's say, but decided to stick up it, maybe because Nico giving not much room and being very forceful, but fair play, keeping the battling alive. Epic. Well, Francesco Largo now has to do what Silo did so well at the beginning of this Grand Prix, and that's build that small bit of a gap at the exit of turn 11 and keep ahead of Epic Vale.
Yeah, and that's what they're going to try and do at the end of this race. Stay ahead of Epic Vale, stay ahead of those positions in behind and pick up as many points as they can heading towards the Drivers' Championship. And of course, they'll be happy with the podium as well as the fights continue on further down the field. Dirk, with a late race burst, I think it's fair to say, as he fights his way up to 9th place. Of course, he has got those track limits, so he's only fighting for pride, but at the moment, he's fighting very, very well, and around the outside, making that move stick on Samuel, who's going to try and fight back, but there's only so much fighting he can do back, and a wobble on the exit confirms the position.
Well, everyone is on a set of hards, just to remind you all, so let's have a look at the penalty situation again. Only 2 of those penalties are above 3 seconds, and that's Simbarock's one on 6, and Dirk, who's just made that move on Samuel Barker on 9. Oscar, Venom, Quantum, Samuel Barker, Nico, Nail, and Lauren are all on 3 seconds. If you couldn't read on the screen right now, but Dirk looking pretty confident of their pace overall. But Venom, with those older tyres, isn't looking that pacey and that threatening anymore.
No, unfortunately for him, it's not looking like it was the strategy to go for today. But it was worth a gamble because, of course, don't forget, he wouldn't have even been anywhere near that pack, and he would have actually been around the same gap behind, so it was entirely worth it for him to go for that gamble and try and fight legitimately for those positions. He was just unfortunate that everybody still had DRS by that point and nobody had fought. So, yeah, Venom dropping down to 8th place now, and continuing his drop down the pack. But I think 8th place is where he's going to drop to, simply because he's 6.2 seconds in behind. And, well, actually, it's Samuel Barker now, 6.2 seconds behind. And I think the more these two fight, the bigger gap that Venom's going to be able to pull out. And Dirk might be doing his teammate a solid here as he hangs it around the outside of Samuel Barker once again. Barker goes for the up and under. There's contact between the two. Dirk goes off the circuit. Barker's front right end plate goes off the car, and that's unfortunate that that's gone the way it has. Gavroche is basically pushing Samuel Barker through the final sector now and pulls to the inside line, wants to get it done, but he knows that Samuel Barker's probably going to make the dive into the pits, or is he? No, he's not. Samuel Barker's going to do the final few laps of this race with a front wing end plate missing, so Gavroche and Nico Rassenberg are going to have to get past what will be a very, very aggressively defending McLaren.
Yeah, this Samuel Barker knows this is for points as well, as Lawrence, after picking up a 3-second time penalty and then a 10-second penalty, retires in the pits. That's 5 drivers lost in this race, and Samuel Barker really holding on. Lap 25 of 28 now, 4 laps remaining of this one. The action is towards the bottom end of the grid, the final point scoring position. Dirk should be able to pull away a little bit now because of that damage to Samuel Barker, as we saw the front right end plate of the McLaren go flying off at turn number 15. Nico picking up another 3-second time penalty, and surely that is points out of, well, it's just not going to happen for Nico now.
Yeah, that's the issue for Nico. He's going to drop off, and that's unfortunate for him because he's fought very, very well as Lawrence becomes our latest and our 5th retirement from the race. Gavroche passes Samuel Barker up into 10th place, and well, he now has that position confirmed, and he's going to want to hold on to it 1.2 behind Dirk, and he's going to try and make his way back into it. Dirk, I think, is going to invite the attack, just because why not at this point in the race? Of course, well, he's going to drop out of the points with his penalties anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But turning the attention with just the 3 laps to go back to the battle at the top, you've got 3 Shazoo drivers chasing a TF10 and another Shazoo driver. And, well, we've only got 3 laps to go for the climax, but this podium could be shaken up, and any one of these 5 drivers could occupy those final 2 spots.
Anyone, indeed, and all it takes is, I won't go through the race director to see if anyone's on their final warning, because that would just add a little bit extra pressure to those drivers as now getting past Nico, as we're on board with Volokongan, the driver in this top 7 cars, or top 6 cars, because Quantum's dropped away now, who is on the youngest tyre life, which could help them in the closing stages, when we really get into the business end on lap 20, well, on the final lap, is when we're probably going to see Volokongan really start to make moves.
Yeah, the final lap of the race, I think, is where we're going to see this race come to a head. And as you mentioned, Volokongan is in a great position to do so in terms of the momentum that he's got. Epic Vale pulled to the outside line of Justin. Huge lockup from the Ferrari as he tries to defend the position and does so successfully. Justin is 7/10 behind this little battle. But if they fight all so hard, then that'll open up the gap for them to come right back in. Epic Vale taking a very wide line once again to try and get the turn in on Francesco Largo. He's got a lot to push with, and he's certainly using all of the circuits at the moment, and he's certainly going to be using all of his ERS and tyres as it stands. Of course, don't forget that Epic Vale came into the pit 15 laps ago, so his tyres will be similar to Francesco Largo, but the ERS levels, I'm sure, will be a lot higher. And they head down the straight one more time. DRS open. He's going to try and get that exit. He's going to try and use that ERS to pull alongside, heading up to Big Red. But, well, Francesco Largo can just fight back with his own DRS, and, well, sorry, his own ERS, and hold that position for now.
Red lights flashing on nearly all the cars when they were coming down through certain areas. Well, through into Big Red there and out of Big Red. But Epic Vale, I think Epic Vale is using the ERS at different points to really maybe frustrate Francesco Largo, to try and put them off. But all Francesco Largo needs to know or do is use it about here into turn number 11 and then down the back straight, and they should be okay for the remainder of this one. But we'll have to wait and see, because this is the closest we've seen at Epic Vale towards the Ferrari at this point in the race.
Yes, and it's going to be very, very tense heading down to what will be the final lap of the race at the penultimate as it stands, and a huge lockup again for the Ferrari. Epic Vale is putting the other Ferrari under a lot of pressure, and at the moment he's just sustaining that pressure on the back of Francesco Largo. Of course, if these two start to fight, then it'll open up the doors to absolutely everybody coming in, so they're going to have to be careful as to how they do it. And they're following through as we head on to what will be the final lap of the race. Silo's driven incredibly, and he's going to lead us onto it.
Yes, indeed, and I feel bad. Silo's driven such a great race and been able to take everything that they needed to do with great, precision. But the battle for P2 is absolutely monumentous, really, when it comes down to it. And you know what? It's like the battle for the lead. And up the inside of Justin goes Volokongan. A little bit of touching between the two Shazoo drivers as they head through turn one. And it's not ideal. Into the Maggots and Beckett's sweeping section now. And all of a sudden, the safeties have come off from these guys.
Yeah, they certainly have. And it's just raw racing at this point, which is exactly what you want to see on the final lap of what has been a very hotly contested Grand Prix. And this one is yet to be decided with just about a minute left of racing. Then we will get our decisions for the final 5 positions, and this is the final DRS straight on this circuit, which is going to offer a huge disadvantage to Francesco Largo because he does not have said DRS, and Epic Vale is going to use everything down here to try and gain on the Ferrari, and he's going to pull to the outside, get that turn in, and then pull to that inside for the next corner, but can't quite do it. Gets a huge kick of oversteer, and that is going to cost him pretty much this entire race.
That is absolutely... Oh, no, up the inside. Epic Vale throwing one last piece at it. It's got the... Oh, that's a big dive in the end, but Epic Vale managing to get through. Justin... They're going to try and get through on their teammate as well. I don't think that the Shazoo's safeties are definitely off. Francesco Largo desperately holding on to Justin for the time being. We will not go and see Silo take the checkered flag, but Epic Vale holding the defensive line through there, and Volokongan throwing the car up the inside. Is it going to stick? Oh my goodness me, what an end to the Grand Prix that was. As I think Silo ran out of fuel right at the end, because that's the Red Bull just hooked over there. But what a crazy end to the Grand Prix.
That was brewing up for about 15 laps at the end of it, and and then we didn't give, which is unfortunate, but it's just the way that it's gone because of the aggressive fight for P2. Silo hasn't had the credit that he's deserved for driving such an incredible race and taking a very, very well-deserved victory at the very top of the field. I'd run you through the standings, but my game is not loading it, so if you would do the honours.
Well, I'm hoping it will load it on my side. We've got the the podium thing through there. But such a shame for Silo, who managed to produce such a solid performance. Everything thrown at them, managing to hold on, and great work from Silo. Fair play indeed for that one. Let's have a look if it will give it. It's given driver of the day to Dirk, but I'll ask that question of you while I go down the order and give you a little bit of time to think about it. It's Silo, Epic Vale, Francesco Largo, Justin, Volakongan, Oscar, Quantum, Gravroch in 8th place, Venom in 9th, and 10th to Dirk, even with those 9 seconds of penalties. And then you had Samuel Barker, Nail, Oscu, and Simba Roxon and Nico finishing with Lawrence, Wards, Schumacher, Andrea, and Kevin all retiring. But Silo is your victor today. What a race from them overall. Real solid drive.
Very, very solid. And that is exactly what you expect out of a Tier 1 race. You expect a dominant drive, you expect a champion's performance, and that's exactly what we've had from Epic Vale today. He's, of course, had his skirmishes in the early parts of this game cycle and also of this season, but he's done incredibly well to manage that one home and take that victory. Hopefully that opens up the door for Silo to continue with that momentum, but yeah, it's certainly a solid start.
Certainly is as well. So you won that one with Silo's as our little thing to go through there. But great race throughout. Let's have a look at the standings the calendar for the season. We've had 4 races now. Before the mid-season break, we have Monaco next week, and it's always a tough one, Monaco. But when you've got a driver of Nail's quality, who's going to be able to stop Nail next week?
Hopefully anyone on this field, because it'll humble him. But yeah, I think it's certainly going to be a difficult one to top. I mean, he goes to do random league races at random time zones just so he can do Monaco. So this is a man with passion, and it's a man who loves that circuit, and he's going to hope to take home what will be his second console Tier 1 victory, and a second console Tier 1 victory at the same circuit. But maybe we'll get an underdog story. Maybe someone will come through. Who knows? Make sure to tune in next week to find out.
Definitely. Before we finish off this one, let's try and round out this one. We lost a few drivers early doors, and obviously not the best week for it, with all the struggles with a few other things going on. And it's really a shame that Ryder Dahl and Matteo weren't racing, considering they were at the top end of the field. But we had an absolute incredible drive from Silo tonight, didn't we? And let's not take anything away. We weren't able to give them the screen time, so let's talk about how crucial that race, how well they raced.
Yeah, they drove incredibly well, and they deserve that victory. They got it right on strategy, they got it right on pace, they pushed at the right times, they conserved at the right times, and that is exactly how you win a race at any level. And Silo did very well to sustain the early pressure and ward off any opportunities of late pressure.
Well, there we have it, really. August the 18th is when we are back on WOR for Monaco Grand Prix with the consoles from console 3 down. And then from yourself and I, we'll be back this time next week for the Monaco Grand Prix as well. Early predictions for race victory.
Well, I mean, it's two names. It starts with an N and it ends with a T, and it spells Isle-EO in between, or Isle-Geo in between. I missed out the G. I don't know why, because that's just not true.
Oh, wonderful. I love that. Anyway, God, there we have it. It doesn't look like we've got anyone joining in the commentary, but the waiting for interview room. So that'll be us done and dusted for tonight. And hope you enjoy the sweat box that is the UK, if you are in the UK right now. And I hope you've got aircon wherever you are. But thank you so much for watching from myself and Joseph. We hope you have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next weekend for the Monaco Grand Prix.